All right, party peoples of the interwebs, I'm in transit today going to the armpit of Canada, also known as Toronto, for this Rumble event protesting for free speech and against recent censorship laws in Canada. All right, so in transit today, I've found a corner in which to do a vlog. I'm not yet in the restricted area, nor will I be going there, but I'm gonna do this quickly before someone says I shouldn't be yelling at a camera in the corner of an airport. The news of the day yesterday is that the appeal of the non-disqualification of Fani Willis has been approved by at least one of the panel of judges at the Georgia Court of Appeal that says, yes, we will hear this appeal. That is the appeal of Scott McAfee declining to disqualify Fani Willis from that case, although he disqualified or ordered the disqualification or kicking out of the file of Nathan Wade. Because of course, one corrupt partner in that prosecution can leave without the other because it's not like they were working together or anything. Of note, pointed it out last week, McAfee, who's running for re-election against Robert Patillo, who I had on the channel a week before last week, held a fundraiser attended by Governor Kemp, a Republican, and Roy Barnes, the former governor of Georgia, who was also one of the witnesses during the trial, who testified that he was Fani Willis's first choice for prosecutor and that he declined it because he has mouths to feed, more likely that he didn't want to tarnish his reputation by prosecuting this bogus persecution, and that they needed someone with no moral or ethical standards, that being Nathan Wade, who hides assets from his wife, lies to his wife, is a philanderer. They needed someone with no ethics, no standards to carry out this ridiculous prosecution. So Roy Barnes says, hell no, and then Nathan Wade gets the job. If we believe Roy Barnes. Roy Barnes also testified that when he met with Fani Willis, she was already with Nathan Wade at that meeting, so it's even questionable testimony to begin with. All that to say, Roy Barnes, former governor, Democrat, supports Fani Willis. Apparently he was representing Fani Willis in that state legislator investigation in order to determine whether or not legislation is needed to avoid the type of ridiculousness that we're witnessing right now.
Right now, state lawmakers are holding a special hearing related to an investigation into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis.
And just as that hearing was about to get underway here at the state capitol, that hearing investigating alleged misconduct by DA Fani Willis, the DA, she was preparing to host a community event in Northwest Atlanta. Take a look. This is video from that event that we were at this morning. She did comment on the state Senate's special committee that's currently happening right now. She says they can look all they want. Her office has done everything by the book. Take a listen.
Isn't it interesting when we got a bunch of African-American DAs, now we need daddy to tell us what to do? They can keep looking. I'm not interested in them looking. They can look. I'm sorry they pissed off. Justice is now actually blind. Lady Justice is blind. Everybody can get it.
He's representing Fani Willis. He attends a fundraiser not at McAfee's place, but with Scott McAfee, where they raised $40,000 for Scott McAfee's re-election bid. Interesting. Scott McAfee, who wrote a judgment that makes no sense within the four corners of the judgment, refers to the odor of mendacity, legally improper conduct by Fani Willis when she gave that speech before the church. Legally improper conduct, odor of mendacity, but doesn't disqualify her, but orders her to disqualify or kick out Nathan Wade. All right, it might make sense if one were trying to garner support for a re-election bid because he was facing an election at that time anyhow. So don't disqualify Fani Willis. Please, Roy Barnes. Roy Barnes attends a fundraiser with Governor Kemp. They raised $40,000 for Scott McAfee in his re-election bid or his election bid against Robert Patillo.
I wanted to go out fishing. I'm still going to go out fishing after I shoot this vlog, but I came across an article and I'm like, holy crab apples, this requires a Fani update. From AJC, which is the Atlanta Journal of something or other, AJC Politics. PGAM, what the heck is Trump trial judge McAfee gets bipartisan backing for election bid? Your daily jolt of news and analysis from the AJC Politics team. And there you have a nice picture of Judge Scott McAfee on the bench looking all intellectual and stuff. Now this article seems to be relatively innocuous until you stop and think about it for exactly 30 seconds.
12 seconds later.
It's not often Republican Governor Brian Kemp and former Democratic Governor Roy Barnes unite, but the two have found a common cause over Fulton Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee. The two men were the star guests at a Thursday fundraiser for McAfee that raised more than $40,000 for his election campaign. The judicial seat will be on the May 21st ballot.
The news is that the appeal will be heard. Now, from what I understand, this needed to be approved by only one of the three judges who heard the briefing as to whether or not the Georgia Court of Appeal should hear the appeal. It only took one. We don't know if it was one, two, or all three who agreed to hear the appeal. They issued that one-page letter, which I might read over and add at the end of this vlog.
Man, forget it. I'll just read it now. Court of Appeals of the State of Georgia, Atlanta, May 8. The Court of Appeal hereby passes the following order in the case of Trump et al. Versus the state. Upon consideration of the application for interlocutory appeal, it is ordered hereby granted. The appellant may file a notice of appeal within 10 days of this order. The clerk of Superior Court is directed to include a copy of this order and whatever that says transmitted to the Court of Appeals.
From what I understand, having picked the brains of smarter lawyers who actually practice in this jurisdiction, Phil Holloway, thanks a lot. Check him out on Twitter if you don't already follow him. Inside the Law with Phil Holloway. This appeal will be heard after briefing by a separate panel of appeals judges. So there's going to be some delays here. There's no chance this prosecution gets done before the election. And then the question is, what do you make of the fact that they've agreed to hear the appeal? My bottom line, I predicted McAfee was going to disqualify Fani Willis, but I'm going to rephrase that. I predicted Fani Willis would get disqualified. And if she gets disqualified by the Georgia Court of Appeal, I'm going to claim full vindication in my initial prediction. It's not my fault Scott McAfee didn't have the judicial cojones to do it or strategized in a way to have someone else do it so that it wouldn't compromise his election bid, because it could be some serious 4D level chess here being played by McAfee. Politics. I said his decision was so ridiculous. Nobody could read it and understand how he came to any different finding of law than disqualification. And when it comes to findings of law, the Court of Appeal has less deference or needs to respect the initial court's decision a little less than when it comes to findings of fact. And I said McAfee came to findings of fact which do not support his findings of law not to disqualify Fani Willis, and therefore I think he teed it up so that a Georgia Court of Appeal can come in and say, with all the findings of fact of Scott McAfee, he erred in law by not disqualifying Fani Willis. They make the decision. It doesn't compromise him in his election bid. It doesn't compromise him in terms of the support that he's going to get or did get from Roy Barnes, the witness, who's supporting Fani Willis. And so it'll be up to a Georgia Court of Appeal to say, yeah, Scott McAfee, you got all the facts right. You just got the conclusion wrong. Disqualification. That's my theory. My theory also is that the Georgia Court of Appeal is going to disqualify because there's been no reason for them to agree to hear this, delay the prosecution if it weren't to overturn the decision. The idea that they would hear the case, delay the prosecution only to affirm Scott McAfee's refusal to disqualify doesn't make strategic sense. Also, for those who are saying they want to rub the corruption in the face of the general public by hearing it and then ratifying the untenable conclusion that McAfee came to, if they wanted to rub corruption in the face of the general public, they just wouldn't agree to hear the case and they'd say Scott McAfee's decision stands. So I think by agreeing to hear it, we don't know if it was one, two, or all three judges, I think they're going to overturn it. And I think Scott McAfee will be embarrassed, but maybe not embarrassed if it actually results in him getting reelected without having burnt those bridges. But I think they're going to overturn this. I'm going to claim full vindication what they do, but that is the latest news coming out of the Fani Willis Georgia RICO debacle. Today, for those who are watching this on May 9th, there is the Stormy Daniels part 2 of her debacle of a testimony in the equally politically motivated persecution coming out of New York with the Soros-funded Alvin Bragg prosecutor and the totally not corrupt Judge Juan Marchand, whose daughter is totally not raking in millions, hands over fist, over this prosecution. That goes on today. I'll do a follow-up with that later tonight, and I'll be in Toronto for the Rumble event. People, now you know your vlog. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Mostly share, but most importantly, exercise. Talk to people in real life. Get out there, and I'm going to go eat some breakfast. Peace. All right, that actually looks pretty darn good. Booyah.